I know it's not Monday, but this really aggravated me, so I wanted to make a quick video and talk about it today. So initially I was going to make this video about reasonableness and chainsaws, but it occurred to me that a non-zero number of you probably don't have a lot of experience with chainsaws. So we're gonna pivot slightly, and I want to talk about something that is probably a little bit more dangerous, in a lot of ways: kitchen knives and reasonableness. Don't worry, this has something to do with MSPs. So on Prime Day, I bought a new ceramic kitchen knife. The one's actually made out of ceramic. They're pretty cool because ceramic knives, really quickly, it has nothing to do with the video, but so normal metal knives, you basically abrade the metal to make it sharper, and with a ceramic knife you basically chip the ceramic evenly to make it sharper, which is kind of cool. I think it's cool. Anyways, I got a ceramic knife, and now I've used a kitchen knife before, and I think we could all agree that while there are different types of kitchen knives and they have different purposes, in general, a generic kitchen knife is pretty much all the same. And even though I got one that's ceramic, the way you would use it is very similar to the way you would use any other kitchen knife, and normal practical knife safety tips all apply. In other words, the knife was designed reasonably, and the knife vendor has a reasonable expectation that I will be reasonable in using their product. Now, I say that because a metal kitchen knife, let me take a step back. An unreasonable application of a kitchen knife is to use the kitchen knife as a pry bar. It was not designed to be used as a pry bar. It is not safe to be used as a pry bar. There is no knife company out there making kitchen knives that is advocating you should use their knife as a pry bar. So no one in that industry, and in general, consumers are not, a common consumer is not going to offer up a kitchen knife should be a pry bar. I say this because a metal kitchen knife might be usable as a pry bar without shattering. A ceramic kitchen knife will not be. It will shatter into a million little pieces. So if I take my ceramic kitchen knife and I try to use it as a pry bar to open something, and it shatters, and I get a piece of shattered ceramic knife in my eye or something, do I have a right to blame the ceramic knife manufacturer and scream to the internet that, I don't know, Kyocera, the printer company, they make ceramic knives, Kyocera ceramic knives are dangerous, buyer beware? And that's kind of where I'm going with this, because my argument here is that no, you really don't have a right to do that. And in fact, what the post should be is, Dean's a dangerous moron and shouldn't be trusted around things, not that it was the knife's fault. And I connect this back to MSP because I see this frequently, especially on Reddit, where folks will buy tools, MSP tools, long established tools where the tool category has a pretty well established track record of right and wrong. And they'll go ahead and ignore all of that and try to use their ceramic knife as a pry bar, which will cause it to shatter, which was an unreasonable thing to try to do to begin with. And then they'll get mad at the vendor, and they'll blame the vendor for it. And they'll take it a step further. They'll get mad at the vendor and say, I tried calling the vendor the minute this happened, and the vendor didn't immediately render me 911 support. They should have done that. And that's a separate tangent, but you probably didn't pay that vendor for emergency support. Whatever. My point is, the entire proposition here is unreasonable. The people who made the tool had a reasonable expectation of its use case. They've likely documented that. There's likely a support library and an FAQ. I know with my ceramic kitchen knife, it says pretty clearly on the box how to use it, how to not use it. And you ignored all that, and you use the product in a way that was unreasonable. And that's important, because if I'm using that ceramic kitchen knife to cut an apple in a regular way on a soft cutting board, which is a reasonable way to use a kitchen knife, and that ceramic knife in that context shattered and poked me in the eye, Well, that's a little bit more interesting, and that's probably something that's more worth getting a little riled up about, because reasonableness was at play. I was using the product the way it was intended to be used in conditions that were favorable and reasonable for its usage, and I had an outcome that was entirely unpredicted and was unreasonable. But that's not what happens here. I saw a post today where somebody picked a backup vendor and basically said, beware of this vendor. And then you read their post, and it turns out that they used a piece of software in a way that I think most of us would agree was pretty unreasonable to begin with. And surprise, it failed. Now, some of that failure was enhanced because this particular backup tool has some features that we might all be able to get into a pretty healthy debate if those features should or shouldn't be included in a backup tool. But either way, the initial premise and the use case was unreasonable. So, hey, that's why I give the example. It's me using my brand new Amazon Prime 𝗤𝑪𝑎𝑟 ceramic knife as a pry-bar, and it shatters. And it is an added feature that when that knife shatters, it spreads glitter everywhere. And so I'm making a post to tell you that I'm mad that the knife shattered, and I'm mad that I'm covered in glitter. And I think we could all agree the glitter part, 𝗤𝑪𝑎𝑟, maybe we don't need to do that. But none of that would have happened if I'd used the product in a reasonable manner. And I don't like this trend. It's not that I don't have any problem with MSPs holding vendors accountable. I love MSPs holding vendors accountable. Do more of that. What I don't like is the complete abdication of responsibility and agency for what happened. This vendor didn't force its way into your client's systems. Like, they didn't show up in a van with a bunch of armed people who broke into your client's environment and forcibly installed their tool in an unreasonable set of conditions and laughed maniacally as it caused you problems. You did that. In the same way that in my silly, goofy example, the ceramic knife didn't jump out of its packaging and insert itself as a pry bar and then break on its own. I made those choices. They weren't good choices. I didn't actually use a ceramic knife as a pry bar. For anybody who's watching this, I'm not stupid. But the MSP made those choices. Where's the accountability for that? It's the part that bugs me. We talk all the time that we need standards in this industry. We need regulations, and, you know, vendors especially. Vendors need to do better. Vendors, why aren't you providing this or that control? Why did your product get breached or ransomed in that way? And we're not wrong about any of that. Like, having password 123 hard coded into your remote management tool is pretty irresponsible. But, like, reasonableness goes both ways, everybody. And there's a lot more MSPs than there are vendors. The consumer base is much larger than the manufacturing base. And unless we want to start seeing things where every, you know, to make another example, every plastic bag says this bag is not a toy, and we sort of become the laughing stock of the rest of the world, it's like, of course it's not a toy, it's a plastic bag. Unless we want to go in that direction, how about we take some personal accountability and apply some reasonableness for how we use things, everybody? I don't think it is an unreasonable expectation that you as an MSP who claims to be a service-focused organization that is constantly watching out for your clients, learn how to use the fucking tools you're deploying fully before you deploy them. I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable that a vendor should render you emergency support you aren't entitled to because you didn't pay for it. And I don't think that reactively realizing that you fucked up and now getting mad that a vendor won't bail you out of the situation that you put yourself in on the time frame you want them to do it on, I don't think that's reasonable. And if you heard all of that and you're like, oh, vendors have a responsibility to miss me with that shit. You have the responsibility. You're the service provider. You're the MSP. You're the one that went into the small business and said, I'm going to take care of and secure your IT environment for you. The vendor didn't do that. You did that. You took responsibility. It's up to you to be reasonable. Let's raise the bar, MSPs. Come on. This stuff isn't hard. It really isn't. It is not hard. Most of the vendors that I know are tripping over themselves to create learning management systems, knowledge bases, and internal certifications because they recognize what a problem this is. Yes, I know we can make a throwaway comment. There are some vendors that want you to learn to support their products so they don't have to. But the point is, like, does that really matter? You should learn how to use the tools you are selling fully, reasonably, earnestly, and honestly. You should know how to use them, not the vendor. It's not the vendor's client, it's your client. Remember, we get mad at that. We get mad when vendors treat your clients like their clients, right? Mixed messaging here, MSPs. They're your clients, MSP. Your responsibility. You need to be reasonable. And I'll finish this out with an example of how I know this industry already knows that. Let's say I go buy a Dell server or HP or Lenovo, whatever. We'll go with Dell because the website's easy. So I buy a Dell server. And it's a, I don't know, right off the shelf, R or whatever we're on, 430, 530, whatever generation we're on. Does that server come with same-day parts and 4-hour on-site? No, right? You all know it doesn't. You all know there's a little line item you have to pick and pay extra for. If you want Dell to pick up the phone and send you parts at all, never mind if you want same-day parts. And even then, they don't always have them in stock. But the point is, it doesn't just come out the box that way. And we're fine with that, right? We're fine with the fact that there are extended warranties with different coverage levels for our server and our server hardware. And we all understand pretty clearly that the server doesn't magically come with same-day replacement parts on its own, right? Whole industry understands that. The fuck is that any different for anything else? You thought about that? I mean, think about how your MSP runs. If you're running a functioning MSP, your regular service agreement probably doesn't come with an emergency SLA that says that you'll, respond to whatever whim the client has. You've probably defined it. It might be extremely favorable, but you've defined it, right? Well, all your SaaS vendors are exactly the same, everybody. And the time to find that out, what warranty your SaaS product came with, if it comes with, figurative same-day parts, is not after you need them. And that's not the vendor's fault if you're only finding that out once your figurative, server fan array has died and you never opted for that level of support. And so they are very reasonably saying that they'll get to it by the end of the week. Kind of sucks to be you at that point. But no one's being unreasonable. Well, except for you, because you didn't bother finding out what level of service you were entitled to begin with. Take some accountability, my friends. Be reasonable.